So, for context, my sister-in-law Eleanor, 28 female, and I, 28 female, never really got along. We have known each other since our college days, and we used to be friends initially, but after that, we had a fallout and things have been bitter between us since then. However, I did start dating her brother, my husband Carson, 30 male, a couple of years after we graduated, and I have been married to him for the past 3 years, so it's not like I have the option to cut her out of my life. There's this weird tension between us anytime we were together at any family gatherings or during the holidays, since we were forced to see each other on such occasions. She would also visit her brother occasionally, but thankfully, my husband understood that we did not get along and I didn't have to spend more time with her than what was required. That's how we had been dealing with things for the past 5 years, since that's how long we've been together. I've always tried my best to keep things civil between us, but she would always go out of her way to make weird remarks and try to put me down in front of people, which would really annoy me. And then I would hit back at her, and it would turn into a sad little cat fight. It was not as if my husband's family hadn't noticed that, but they had the good sense to ignore it. I had asked Carson to talk to his sister several times, and he had spoken to her, reprimanded her, and whatnot, but it was of no use. She just had something against me ever since we had a fallout in college, and she did not like the idea of us acting dignified in public and just ignoring each other like normal grown-ups who don't like each other do. So she had to stoop down to levels that were completely unnecessary and take pot shots at me whenever she could. Recently, I decided I was not going to entertain this BS anymore, and I would either ignore her entirely or just avoid events where she would be there. It kind of sucked, because due to her behavior, the rest of the family also felt awkward to be around us, and it was just weird. So instead of hitting back at her, I decided to just ignore her, and I don't think she was taking it well. Because the last couple of times that the family got together, she tried to annoy me into getting a response out of me, but I just pretended like I couldn't even hear her. I eventually realized that her usual tactics were not going to work anymore, and she decided to take it a notch higher and started bothering me on text. And I would have ignored that too, but then I noticed something that didn't quite sit right with me, and I decided to notify the people who I thought needed to know about what was going on with Eleanor. And now I'm getting a lot of hate for it, so I don't know what to do. So a couple of weeks ago, Eleanor purchased a vacation home for herself in Cabo with her fiance Jake, 33 male, which is good for her. Jake is a heart surgeon, and he's doing pretty well for himself, so they can afford to do that. Eleanor works in a bank. She's pretty much in the same tax bracket as us, but she likes to pretend like she's better than us for some reason, just because she has a rich fiance. Anyway, when she bought that vacation home, she announced it on social media, but I don't follow her anywhere, so I did not know about it, which is why she felt the need to personally text me and let me know about this. She texted me that she had bought this and then proceeded to send me a bunch of photos of the interior and the exterior, and it was pretty beautiful. I did not know how to react to that, given our relationship, so I just decided to leave the message on read. I had considered congratulating her, but it did not seem worth it to even respond to her. And I was right, because when she realized that I was not going to text her back, she decided to inform me that she was throwing a party for everyone that she knew, including my husband, but she was not going to be inviting me since I was an outsider, meaning that I was not related to her by blood and neither was I a friend of hers. And she was texting me to let me know that she hoped that I was okay with this. She also added that she had sent those photos to me so that I wouldn't feel like I had missed out on an opportunity to witness what a fabulous vacation home looks like. It was all a bunch of pretentious nonsense, and I really don't have time for that. So I just told her that I was fine with it and she could invite whoever she wanted. It did not concern me in the slightest, and then I muted messages from her. Obviously, she invited Carson to the party that she was throwing, but he did not go because I was not invited. When Carson told her that he would not be attending the party, she was a bit upset. And instead of acknowledging the fact that he was obviously going to take my side here because I was his wife, and also I was right, she decided to blame me for his absence at the party and texted Carson saying that she was really disappointed that he was choosing to skip her party just because I was not invited. And then she went on to say that I was the person who had a problem with her, so it was unfair of him to treat her like this. It was an obvious lie, since I have never tried to mess with her. It's always she who has tried her best to pick on me and get under my skin. Anyway, neither Carson nor I had any time for this drama, and we did not engage with her further. But then, a couple of days ago, one day after the party had been held, she decided to reach out to me yet again, and this time I could not let this go unanswered. She had not invited older members of the family, but everybody who was around our age had been there, and it seemed like everybody had a great time there. Even our friends from college attended the party, and it was crazy. Unfortunately, Jake himself could not be present at the party because he had fallen sick at the very last minute, but he did not want her to cancel, so she went on with the event. But that turned out to be pretty fortunate for Eleanor for reasons that I will get to later. Anyway, the day after the party, I was just crawling through my messages mindlessly when I realized that I had received another bunch of photos from her. When I opened her chat out of curiosity, I realized that they were photos of the party. They were all over social media anyway, since a lot of our family members had been invited, and I could see that they had posted it on their accounts as well. And just to be petty, she had sent them to me personally as well. She had even said that she did not want me to feel like I missed out on a great party, so she was sending me those pictures to make me feel like less of a loser. It really got on my nerves because here I was trying to keep things civil between us, but she just couldn't tolerate that. I was very upset when I saw those photos and the message that she had sent, and I had half a mind to block her and give my husband an ultimatum, saying that we could either seriously go no contact with Eleanor, or I would make sure that I never had anything to do with his family ever again. Because this was getting too much, and I couldn't take it anymore since she was trying to rile me up constantly. But then, while going through the pictures, something caught my eye, and it was the fact that in the background of some of the photos, I could see somebody who I recognized from college. But I would never expect them to be present at any event that Eleanor was hosting. So, for context, the person that I saw in the background of some of those pictures from the party just so happened to be Eleanor's ex-boyfriend from college, Hank. And they had a very public on and off relationship for almost 5 years, 3 years of college, and then 2 more years after that, after everyone had assumed that they had finally ended things for good. But if he was at her party, clearly that was not the case. I was very confused as to why he was at the party because from what I knew, Jake and Eleanor had been together for almost 3 years now, and she had no reason to still keep in touch with him, much less invite him to an event. So when I saw those pictures, instead of talking to Eleanor about it, I decided to reach out to a couple of our friends from college who had been present at the party to ask them what was going on. And very interestingly, they let me know that nobody had expected him to be there, since everyone knew that they had broken up 2 years after college, and since then, neither of them had been in touch with each other. In fact, some people even told me that the reason that Eleanor and Hank had broken up in the first place was because he was not serious enough about the relationship, and they had been having a lot of problems in the last few months of being together. And due to this, he had cheated on her, and that's why she had broken things off with him permanently. Then, 1 year after their breakup, She met Jake and they had been together since then. When I asked them what had happened at the party, they told me that Eleanor and Hank had been close, and she had apparently told everybody that they were just friends now. They were trying to make things right with each other because they wanted to stay on good terms, and they did not want to dredge up the past on purpose. Obviously, nobody bought that since Jake was not even present at the party, and they were pretty sure that this was a last-minute change to the guest list that Eleanor had made once he found out that Jake was not going to be there at the party, and she had just blindly put her trust in a bunch of people whom she had barely even been in touch with for the past couple of years after we had graduated. The only reason nobody said anything about it was because it was none of their business. However, when I started asking about it, nobody kept any secrets from me either. So once I knew the truth, I decided that I was going to talk to Jake about this. But before I went ahead with that, I thought that it would be more appropriate to talk to Eleanor about it first. I thought I should just give her a heads up that I am going to bring this up so she can at least be mentally prepared for this. I texted her about it, and I told her that I knew she had invited Hank to the party, and I was just wondering if Jake was aware of their history or even the fact that she had invited him to the event. She seemed shocked and instantly texted back asking me how I knew that since I hadn't even been there at the party. So I decided to send her the photos that she had sent me and highlighted Hank in a couple of the photos, lurking and trying to hide in the background. After that, I had to wait for a couple of minutes, but then she sent me a long message about how she and Hank were trying to stay on good terms because she did not want to have any drama with anybody from her past. Because she planned on inviting our entire friend circle from college to the wedding, and so she wanted to make sure that he was a part of it as well. Because even though he was her ex-boyfriend, he had also been a really good friend to her, and that's all that it was. She trusted the people she had invited to the party, so she did not think that it would be a big deal, since she was pretty sure that they were not going to talk to Jake about it. But she was still asking me to keep my mouth shut because she had unfortunately not spoken to Jake about this yet. And she knew that he would not be fine with finding out about something like this from somebody else. So she just told me to keep my mouth shut for a while, and then she would discuss this with Jake himself. Then I asked her why she hadn't spoken to Jake about it yet. I expected an honest answer since I was willing to keep her secret. But then she decided to be rude to me and told me that it was none of my business. She also went on to say that I shouldn't poke my nose where it doesn't belong, and that I had to keep my mouth shut until she had spoken to him herself. Now, I hope everybody realizes that I was actually willing to keep her secret. All she had to do was be nice to me for a while, and I think anybody in her position would have had the intelligence to do so, especially since I'm holding on to something that I can use against them. But when I read those messages from her, I was so pissed I didn't even think twice, and I decided to text Jake about it immediately and told him everything. After I had said everything to him and put it all in, I blocked Eleanor and turned my phone off because I did not want to entertain anyone at that point. I was really annoyed, and I only turned my phone back on once I had gotten home from work. Obviously, it was immediately filled with messages from Eleanor and surprisingly my in-laws as well. Everybody was really pissed that I had told Jake about this and said that I had no right to interfere in their personal lives. My in-laws are mostly just disappointed and said that there was no reason for me to go out of my way to talk to Jake about things that did not concern me, just to create a fight. And Eleanor was really mad, and she told me that after I told her about the fact that she had invited Hank to the party, he was furious, and they are in a really bad fight right now. She's blaming me for all of it, but I really just think that if she had been nice to me and not taken that stone with me, I wouldn't have interfered. However, since the beginning of time, she has always tried to put me down, and this was just the limit for me. Even when I was trying to help her out, she still decided to have an attitude with me, and that just did not sit right with me, which is why I went out of my way to tell Jake and create drama. I don't see anything wrong with what I did. But I have spoken to Carson about it, and he thinks that I should have just let things be. He believes that it would have been a more mature move to block her and move on with my life instead of indulging her. He's obviously not speaking to anybody from his family right now because he's on my side. But at the same time, he believes that what I did was completely unnecessary. And even though he does not think I should apologize, he does think that I should at least introspect and acknowledge the fact that it was not needed. He thinks that whatever is going on right now is very high school drama, and I feel like he's right. So AITA for telling my sister-in-law's fiance that she had invited her ex-boyfriend to a party that she had hosted. Edit. Hey, so there has been some misunderstanding, I guess. My husband has never forced me to interact with his family. He would never do that to me. Every time that I would be a part of family gatherings and attend events where I knew my sister-in-law would be present, it was of my own accord. He would never tell me that I had to attend these events with him. And he had tried to tell Eleanor several times that the way she was behaving with me was not fine and that she needed to get her act together. But she was the one who would never listen to him. I did not want him to have any contact with his family because that would make everything very awkward. So a lot of people believe that he's not been fair to me and has always taken his sister's side, but that's not the case. I can assure you guys of that, because if it was, we wouldn't have been together still. He loves me and always treats me as a priority, so please don't worry about whether I'm being treated right in this marriage or not. Update 1. Hey, so I did some introspection, and I guess what I did was completely unnecessary, just like Carson had said. But at the same time, I think it was important for Eleanor to realize that she can't just try to walk all over me and expect to get away with it every time. Earlier, we would get into cat fights, and then I started ignoring her. But nothing works when it comes to her. She just can't stand it until she's able to get a reaction out of somebody, and that reaction needs to be crying or misery because of her. Unfortunately for her, my reaction was not what she wanted, because she had expected me to just give up and let her get away with it. But this time, I was not going to do that. I explained these things to Carson. He kind of gets where I'm coming from, but it doesn't take away from the fact that whatever's going on, it's still pretty high school. So we have just decided to agree to disagree on this topic, because anyway, it's not like I'm going to apologize, even if I'm wrong. And that's just because the person that I need to apologize to is not somebody who is worthy of it. It has been a week since I told Jake what had just happened at the party, and they're still fighting, from what I know. My in-laws think that I shouldn't have meddled, and that's why Carson and I are not speaking to anybody from his family right now. We are planning on just laying low for a while, and then whatever happens, happens. I have blocked Eleanor, so she can't text me, and recently Carson blocked her as well after she decided that she was going to start trying to bother him instead of me. She had been texting him relentlessly, trying to get him to turn against me and leave me if that was possible. She was trying to make it seem like this was all my fault, completely glossing over the fact that she was the one who had invited her ex-boyfriend to a party that she was throwing in a vacation home that she had bought with her fiancé. I mean, that's so messed up on so many levels. Anyway, now that Jake knows the truth, which I highly doubt she was going to tell him herself anyway, he can decide for himself whether he wants to spend the rest of his life with somebody like Eleanor. Update 2. So it's been about 12 days since I told Jake about what had happened, and today I finally got to know that he had decided that he was going to put the engagement on hold for now. They're not breaking up. That was made very clear to me and everybody else. But they have decided that they're not going to get married this year like they had initially planned to. They announced this in the family group that had been created, but had been silent for quite some time, ever since we ended up in a fight. I don't know if it's the call to make, but ultimately it is his choice. Eleanor obviously is very pissed about that, because she had been bragging to everyone that she was going to get married this year. And then they were going to go on a fabulous honeymoon to the Greek islands. So I guess she's going to have to wait for a little longer for that to happen. We haven't been on speaking terms with her for the last couple of days, but Carson told me that yesterday she had reached out to him through a fake account that she had made to tell him that he was making a mistake by staying with me and that he needed to leave me ASAP so that his life could be better. I think she's taking this a little too far because I had only told Jake the truth. But here, she's trying to go out of her way and create trouble between Carson and I. Luckily, my husband is not an idiot, and he knows that she's just doing this to get under my skin. But I think what she's doing is really unhealthy and weird. It has almost started to feel like she is obsessed with me and can't let me be happy. I'm just hoping that she actually does show up at our doorstep, and then that will give me a reason to get a protective order against her, because the way she's acting right now is completely unhinged. I really don't think that anybody would be able to justify this kind of behavior, not even her parents. The next time she tries to do something like this, I'm just telling my in-laws, even though I'm not on good terms with them right now. I have tolerated enough of her BS over the years. I can't do that anymore. She is really taking the trouble to create fake accounts and stuff just to bother me. Then it obviously means that she has completely lost it. She's also going around talking crap about me to our friends from college, but that doesn't really bother me because nobody's taking her seriously right now. Speaking of college, I guess it's time to tell you guys what actually led us to having a fallout back then, since so many of you have been asking me about it. So back in college, we used to be friends since we were in the same year and in the same department as well. Both of us were majoring in geography, and we had struck up a friendship in the first year, but it had ended by the second year. The reason for that was that while initially we were pretty close, I also started making a lot of other friends, and she became a part of my friend group automatically, just by association with me. And then one night, these friends of mine called me up and invited me out for dinner and drinks with them. Eleanor was not invited, and the reason was that it was somebody's birthday, and that person was not close enough to her for her to invite her out. The next day, when she discovered that we had all gone out without her, she got pissed, but mostly at me. She thought that it should have been my duty to call her and invite her out as well, since this was her friend circle too. I thought that it was really petty of her, and more importantly, it was not my call to make, because it was somebody's birthday and I couldn't just overrule that person and decide that I was going to invite her out as well, even though she was not particularly close to the person whose birthday it was. We were able to sort out that fight, and I thought that everything would go back to normal, but instead, she started trying to turn my own friends against me and started spreading really mean rumors about me. Like, apparently I was talking crap about everybody who I called a friend and had said nasty things about them. So I started losing my friends, and when I discovered that she was behind all of that, I decided to confront her. And we had a really nasty and public fight. So since then, we have not been friends. And even when I started dating Carson, I had been kind of skeptical about how she would allow our relationship to last, given her grudges against me. But then Carson and I really loved each other, and we made it work, despite her best efforts to get us to break up in the initial stages of our relationship. It was an enmity that we had in college, and when I started dating Carson, I was ready to put all of that behind us because I thought it was too petty and childish to carry into our adult lives. But she was the one who did not want to let the past go. So even though I had tried to be her friend when I first started dating Carson, she rejected all my efforts. And then, even though I made up my mind that I was not going to try and get her to befriend me, either because it was just not worth it, as it was very obvious that she wanted to pick fights with me and continue this weird and petty rivalry we had. So since then, things have been better between us, and it's just never been fixed. And I would honestly blame it all on her. This is not my fault. Update 3. Hi, so It's been almost 3 months since my big fight with Eleanor, and we have not been speaking since then. After 1 month had passed and we still had no contact, I had assumed that she would let this go and not create any more drama. Carson and I have just stayed away from all family gatherings since then, and we haven't even been in touch with his parents, since they have made it very clear whose side they're on, and they are blaming me for whatever happened between Eleanor and Jake, so we were not speaking to them either. We were cut off from that side of the family, and the people who were still in touch with us were a couple of cousins who believed that I was not at fault, and I'm thankful for them. Anyway, 2 days back, Eleanor finally showed up at our house to confront us and tell us that Jake had decided to not only break off the engagement, but also to end their relationship. When she showed up, I had initially refused to let her in, but then she started banging on the door relentlessly, and Carson was getting sick of it. So he just opened the door and let her in, and then she started acting pretty hysterical. She was screaming like a banshee and told us that it was our fault that we were leaving her and that she would never be able to recover from this. She claimed that not only had she lost Hank when she had decided to put the engagement on hold, but she had also lost Jake now. Apparently, Hank did flirt with her a couple of times while they had been trying to fix their friendship in the past, which is why she had invited him to the party, because she wanted to sort out what they felt about each other. And he had confessed that he loved her, and she had believed that she did too. She had intended on telling Jake about it afterwards, but then when he found out about Hank from me, they had a connotation, and she decided that she did not want to let him go. So she had told Hank that she couldn't break things off with him and decided to try and fix her relationship with her fiancé instead of going for Hank. So for a couple of months, they tried to fix their relationship. Jake was having a lot of trouble dealing with his trust issues, and even couples counseling was not helping. So he decided to break up with her for good. And now she was blaming me for all of that and was demanding that I fix her relationship with Jake and that we somehow convince him to forgive her and give her a second chance. When I told her that I was not going to do any of that, she literally tried to physically attack me. And that was when Carson had to intervene, drag her off of me, and call the cops. And now I'm going to do what I had said I was going to do earlier in case something like this ever happened. Carson and I are filing for a restraining order against her. And we are also going absolutely no contact with anybody who supports her. Stay tuned for more stories from Argo Relationships.